Alright, hello, hello. Oh, I'm pretty sure you guys can't hear a duplicate of my voice here. Yeah, no, desktop audio is out. Looked like the stream sound is going well. Oh, okay, well, this has been the first stream that I have done since, since, what, we missed out the entirety of last week. And there is a good reason for that, well, a good reason in my opinion. You guys are left to decide whatever you want to decide. Let's go ahead and turn on desktop audio. Let me go here and get some music activated. Let's see, how did that sound? Did that sound okay? Maybe I can turn that up a little bit more? Doesn't seem to be showing up on my desktop audio that much. It could just be extremely quiet. Let me go into my volume mixer here. And I think I just turned this up to about there, and then I can just turn it down myself here, and that should not affect anything. Sneak attack, roll for initiative. Oh no. Damn it, Liger. Every time. I'd never expect it. Oh, I hope you've been doing well. I apologize for not having a session. When was it? Yesterday? No, today's Monday. Yeah, yesterday. I was planning to have a D&D session yesterday. However, just like what Liger did in the chat just now, a cold sneak attacked me, and decided that no, today you shall not have fun and you shall not be able to enjoy yourself. So we are going to give you a cold. As the title also suggests, right now I am indeed eating food. I am having fish and chips, which is pretty much my go-to, and yes, I did make the fish and chips myself, not from scratch. Today's Tuesday. Come on, man. I know this very well because I had a lot of anguish today when deciding whether or not to go into work. And every time I don't go into work, I feel like somehow I am failing someone or something out there. And I'm like, okay, today is... Wait. Yeah, no, hold on. I need to check my computer here. What? Today's Tuesday? Wait, no, of course it's fucking Tuesday. I don't stream on Mondays. Oh my goodness. Yeah, okay, no, you're totally right, Liger. Man, most of the time when somebody tries to tell me that the day is another day, I usually don't believe them, but man, my senses have just been so confused lately. So, yesterday at work, we had a training day for certain key members of staff that did not include myself. So the school was closed down, basically a day off, almost like a bank holiday for the students and a lot of the staff. So I took the day off yesterday. On Sunday, I was ill, and Monday I was still recovering from an illness. So I, took the day off work. And man, it did not feel good whatsoever. 1 second. I am just going to go ahead and check the stream stuff here. Give me a moment here. If I hit that quickly and then I hit this. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, no, you're totally right. It is Tuesday. Man, I have been playing so much Pokemon. I have forgotten, like, literally what day we're on. It's been a confusing week so far. I didn't even realize that, Saturday and Sunday even happened. Do you guys ever get that when you're, like, playing, like, something new, or you guys are into, like, into something? Like, the days just seem to, like, have no meaning at that point? I think that's basically what happened with me. You had a really runny nose yesterday. But after a nap, you were all fine, and yeah, that's the Pokemon train have been on. Yeah, so in the Discord channel that Liger and I are both in, another one of my players, the D&D players who we play with, is also on the Pokemon Scarlet Violet train, and we have just been using this Pokemon channel in our Discord channel for for so many Pokemon related stuff. And honestly, I know a lot of people want to, like, I know some people, should I say, who do want to, like, try and spread out content like this. So, like, let's say you get a new game. Some people will play it, like, will binge play it for, like, week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then after that they never play it again, right? They get so bored of it, they exhaust the game of all of its content. It's like they're a monster devouring, like, just content, right? Just, like, new lore, new experiences. And then other people you have are just like, no, okay, this is always going to be here for me when I come back, so I'm going to get on with the rest of my life, while at the same time enjoying this during my spare time. That way I can enjoy, let's say, Pokemon Scarlet, over the course of, like, several months instead of over several weeks, like me and my friend have done. But I don't think any of those two are more or less valuable than each other, or more or less correct. Even though it seems like my brain does kind of, I don't know. My brain almost kind of wants to say that the way that I do it, which is binge play it, is not the right answer. Because it does come with, like, you know, some short-term sacrifices, right? So some of the short-term sacrifices might include, like, you know, issues of motivation, right? If you're just sitting there playing on your Nintendo Switch, like, for, I don't know, for, like, you know, 9 hours a day, you eventually come to and you're just like, well, what happened to my day, right? I remember waking up, it was dark outside, and then I look back outside and it's dark again, but I'm pretty sure a day has happened. You're a mix of those two, but you rarely get bored of a game. So I wonder, how long does it take for you to get through a game on average, would you say, right? I guess that might be a bit of a difficult question to answer, depending on, like, how much, you know, story the game has, right? Yeah, exactly. So let me see if I can refine that a little bit more. When you have completed the story of a game, let's say it's a relatively story-based game, right? And let's say it doesn't really have all that much replayability, like you're only playing it for the story, right? And let's say it's maybe like a 20-hour story game, and then once you're done with the 20 hours, like, on average, most people just move on after that. But let's say you really enjoy it as well. Do you think you stick with it for a bit longer than normal, or would you start a new game in that instance? I feel like if the story of a game is really, really good, I get, like, pretty in-depth into it, and after I play through the first time, I play back through again a second time, maybe getting about halfway, so that then I can appreciate the first half of the game again, knowing what happened at the end. Similar to Pokemon Violet and Scarlet. I've not really replayed it through again, but I have been watching a Niji-Sanji member streaming it lately. So I've been noticing these slight little hints towards the ending of the game that have been seeded at the very start that you would miss on the first time through, right? So yeah, I tend to, like, maybe do, like, you know, 150 times, or, like, you know, an extra 50 times the amount of hours that it takes for a game to be completed, on average, normally. I like to enjoy, like, the story threads and all of those types of stuff. I'm not sure. So, like, I'm now thinking about. One second. I'm now thinking about storyline-related games versus, or more story-based games versus more mechanically focused games, right? And I want to know what you guys think about, you know, the difference between those two. Whether or not you enjoy more mechanical-based games rather than more storyline games. If it's a 20-hour game, you give it at most a week of constant playthrough with possible new strategies on each run-through. Yeah. So let's say you can. I guess this might be a difficult question to answer. I'm not sure how I would answer it either. But I kind of want to ask, like, you know, when you're done with a, you know, pure story-based game, do you go through and play it again? Or do you find that you're not really much a fan of story-based games yourself? I feel like I weigh story-based games much more favorably than a lot of people would. For instance, with Pokemon, one of the common criticisms of Pokemon Sun and Moon is that it's way too handholdy, and the story is not really focused on your character. It's focused on this NPC, and it's not really your story. It's, you know, Lily's story, who's this NPC in Pokemon, who they focused on quite a bit. And yeah, I get it. But at the same time, I can overlook, like, the, you know, the hand-holdiness. I can overlook the, you know, focus on, you know, these NPCs, because the NPCs are actually really good, and the story is amazing. You go through it again. Skyrim was one of the bigger ones you did, and kind of the first. Ooh, interesting. Have you not done, you not played Oblivion or any of the other Elder Scrolls games, have you? I might recommend playing Oblivion if you ever have the chance to. It's an old game, so it can run pretty well on most computers nowadays. And it's on Steam as well, which is super cool. Plus, I think there's still a very active modding scene in that game. Let me see. How do I open up an incognito window? Incognito mode. Incognito. Oh, open an incognito window. Fantastic. Okay. Let's go to Google. Okay. You have Oblivion, just haven't run it yet. So many other games first to complete. Ooh, I wonder what other games are on your list. I don't really know what type of gamer you are, actually. I know you enjoy more horror-based games. But is that like a major theme for you? Or is that more sort of like a side indulgence? What sort of like the genre would you say that you play the most? For me, definitely RPGs, and also weirdly, even though I said about this storyline aspect to it, I really do spend a lot of time playing strategy games. So you like all the Paradox games, like you know, Europa Universalis. I know it's not a Paradox game, but Civilization I played quite a lot. I have probably like up there in my top 3 most played games on Steam, actually. Crusader Kings as well. More of a survival RPG colony manager type of person. It sounds like RimWorld is very much up your alley, my friend. Am I correct in that assumption? Let's see, there's also an old game as well. Have you ever heard of the game Banished? Let's see, Banished game. Let's see. So let me see if I can get this on stream here. How would I go about showing this? You're playing RimWorld right now, so yes? Oh wow, there we go. Let me see. If I can just grab this and let's change it to this tab? Save. Yeah. Okay, so let's change over to this tab. So this is Banished. It's a really old game. When did it come out? 2014. Oh my goodness, I remember when this game recently came out and people were playing it on YouTube. Ooh, this makes me feel old. But this was a very difficult, and it still is a very difficult, like, city management type of game. It's almost like a City Skylines to a small degree. But it is about survival, first of all. You're, as the name implies, you are banished. So you played like a small tribe of people who have been banished from society. Let me try and move this over here quickly. Did that mess anything up on stream? Nah, it doesn't look like it. How do I want to... This should be fine. Just means I'm going to look over here for now. But yeah, as the name implies, you are a group of exiled adventurers who decides to restart their lives in a new land. So you're literally starting from scratch, which is pretty cool. And then you build up massive city like what you're seeing here. And you have to manage like it probably sounds a bit too micromanagey, but you have to manage the lives of your people. You can give them all individual jobs. It's actually a really cool game. I would highly recommend. Still £15, which is a little bit high, I think, for a game from 2014, but hey, to each their own. Let's see. Very good game. Only complaint is there isn't any technology development, so it gets repetitive. Played it for years. Ooh. Oh man, people are still posting reviews on this. Oh, that's lovely. Every now and then I come back to build a new city. Set the standard for city sim games. PS, get the mega mod for insane amounts of added content. Ooh, okay. Glad to see that people are modding this as well. Oops. Yeah, medieval city builder. The amount of mods. Yeah, if you're playing for the first time, get a couple of playthroughs strictly of vanilla under your belt. Because the mechanics in this game are like really, really deep. Sound like RimWorld, but older. It is. I think RimWorld has an advantage over this game because it gives your colonists like personalities and everything. Whereas here, pretty much everyone is the same. I think they have like some random events every now and then happen to them. But as a whole, like the village is like its own character rather than having the characters of the individual themselves, right? I know so many games started and ended like after like the first winter. I feel like the first part of the game is set just trying to prepare yourself for the first ever winter, which is hilarious. Not hilarious, I mean it's like really realistic for sure. But yeah, I wonder if Shining Rock Software has developed any other game. This is the only game they have ever developed. Wow. Wonder how they're doing now. Oh, let me just move this aside quickly. Is there a way to hide... 1 second. Oops. No. How do you hide the bookmarks tab? I have no clue how you hide the bookmarks tab. Oh, there's a button up here. What did this do? No? I don't know. What was I searching for? I've completely forgotten what I was searching for now. Oh, I think I was going to look up Shining Rock Software. Let's see if there's any information on them. So, let's see. Shining Rock Software LLC. So yeah, let's see what we have over here about Shining Rock. No clue. You're still featuring Banished back here. This is the only game you've created? What have you got in development? A new game somewhat similar to Banished in gameplay, but with deeper simulation more focused on individuals. Follows a band of nomads. Here's the tricky thing about peaking at an early game development. Despite what's written here, the game might change direction and become something else. Huh, is this a one-person team? It definitely screams indie developer to me. You still have post dating in 2021. Code rot is really a thing. If you got some source code and you leave it alone for too long, it stops working properly. Is he still active? Or are they, I suppose? Okay, so it sounds like he's getting basically the writer's block equivalent of for coding. Graphics code has been saved for a long time. Been merrily adapting things over the past 3 years. This is OpenGL renderer. Is that what you use to make stuff for video games? Yeah, it definitely does. Sounds like quite the adventure. Man, I have no idea about OpenGX or... Sorry, OpenGL or what? Vulkan? I've never heard of that. DirectX? Sure, I've not heard of any of these things. Yeah, hopefully he comes out with another game at some point. Because Banished is actually incredible. Well, there's a section for mods. View them on the Steam Workshop. Let's see, what are some of the most popular mods of all time? More wood per tree. That is the most popular mod of this game. More wood per tree. Increases the number of wood logs created for each tree felled. This is the most popular mod on the on the workshop. Tells me that, you know, resources are very, very difficult to come by. And what's this? More stone per rock as well? Oh man, Risa, you apparently know what makes the hearts of these people tick. Sounds like wood was a real problem. It was. Like, all the buildings required wood. And, like, you had to harvest enough wood before the winter so that you can get all of your essentials up. So, you know, get homes built for all of your people, and then some extra because people don't like living in, you know, in houses with other families. Hopefully by the time the first winter comes around, you can start making like a few stone houses. But in order to do that, you need to have wood to build the quarries, I think. And you know, there's just, you know, a lot of things you need to do before the first winter. Russian translation, intensified fishing dock. And oh yeah, I remember, I think there was a function in this game where if you only fed your people one source of food, then they could get sick. Or there was something about having only one source of food that made it a problem. Stone bridge. Adds a stone bridge to the game. I believe you can make bridges in Banished. Just normally. Japanese translation. Yeah. The graphics do very much remind me of Age of Empires, actually. Have you ever played that? I think the last game that I played was the one where you can insert the cheat code to have cars spawn. And also thinking back on it, you have not. Let's take a look. Go to the Steam store. Age of Empires. Let's just see what comes up. They're up to 4. Age of Empires 4. Very positive. I'm looking for, like, what is the best Age of Empires game? Let me check Google. Okay, what is the key to opening an incognito tab? I have no idea. Best Age of Empires game. Every Age of Empires game ranked. Which Age of Empires is best? Age of Empires 2 is the most popular. I believe there are still, like, there are commentaries on YouTube of people talking about, like, games of Age of Empires, and one of the older games as well. But it's like commentaries for, like, tournaments, and it's still going on, which is incredible. I believe that's what, this one? Age of Empires 2? Recent reviews, overwhelmingly positive. That's what I like to see. Alright, let's see. Oh, yeah. I remember this now. I feel like one of the Age of Empires games had a story that was focused on the Ottomans. Or like around like that sort of like 1400s, 1500s era. And I can't remember if this one is it. Only £31 for the entire DLC list. And you can get like the base game for like £15. That's so much better than like The Sims. Oh my goodness. Explore the original campaigns. Yeah, no. I wonder if Banished was inspired by this, actually. Because if we take a look at the graphics here, and then we go and check the graphics here, I mean, this one, like, it looks better. But there's, like, a style to it, right? Just sort of like the... I almost want to use the word rustic, but I don't necessarily know what the word rustic means. It's just a word that jumps out to me as I look at this. Like, this looks rustic. Taking a look at this, there's almost like a grandiose, like, you know, more epic scaled rustic appeal to Age of Empires, I think. I'm actually going to look up the definition for rustic here. Rustic definition. Oh, relating to the countryside. Well, I guess we can see this one here, Banished. I can certainly see countryside because it's literally, you know, you're out in the countryside building up a new civilization, or like a new city or whatever it is. And in Age of Empires, I mean, isn't it just the same? You just do it on a much grander scale. Food is so good. Alright, let's swap on back to here. Alright, let's see if we can get a new song. Let's fade this one out. Let's pick Blossom. Blossom sounds nice. Yeah, I think this one sounds okay. Let me know if it doesn't work on stream. So yeah, I mentioned Pokemon a bit earlier, and it had been pretty much my focus, like the focus of my life for like the past 2 weeks since Scarlet and Violet came out. Sounds good and works. Oh, lovely, lovely, lovely. But I don't know how to explain this, really. Like, I almost want to say that it's very meaningful to me to be able to play the new Pokemon games. And it's simply because, you know, since, like, 2017, or, like, since, well, after I graduated from university, which was, like, 2019 or something? 2018, 2019, something like that. I basically feel like I was unable to, like, you know, get things for myself. And that's simply because at the time I was like a, you know, a single adult. I didn't have a good job. Well, should I say a good paying job? I don't want to necessarily say that McDonald's was a bad job. I had a lot of issues with it personally. It's useful for a lot of people. Like, I imagine McDonald's as like the great equalizer of jobs, right? No matter who you are or where you're from, you can get a job at McDonald's. And once you're finished at McDonald's, you have like this baseline of experience that pretty much all employers are going to love in the future, right? Even if you're planning on just not doing anything in customer service anymore, right? Like for me, I went from McDonald's into being a teaching assistant at a, you know, a secondary school, or high school for Americans, I think. It's a good beginner job. It is. But even... I want to say it's a bit more than a good beginner job, because it's a good interim job as well, I think. And when I say good, I mean it's always something that's available to you, right? So even if, let's say, like, I'm trying to think of how I want to phrase this. So one of the people who I worked with in McDonald's, and I've acknowledged that I've gone on a bit of a tangent here, remind me to get back on topic about, you know, why working at McDonald's prevents me from getting a Switch. I think it should be obvious, but remind me about that later on. But I was working with somebody in McDonald's for a while, who did the night shift with me, and she was from Romania. And while she was in Romania, she was actually a teacher, like a fully qualified, you know, teacher. And it came up one day. I'll remind you if I remember. Thanks. I appreciate it. But yeah, she was a fully qualified teacher in Romania, and she just moved over to the UK for family reasons. I think her husband moved over, and she had to get a job, and something about like the Romanian qualification for being a teacher doesn't allow her to teach in the UK, which I think makes sense. You need to have a PGCE, post, what is it? I want to say PG, postgraduate certificate of education. Yeah, that's it. But over here you need to get a PGCE, which is sort of like something that you can train for. You can go to university to get one. A lot of courses offer a PGCE as a bonus, or as a reward for you, basically. But she ended up working at McDonald's for like the years. I think she moved into McDonald's like a year after I started working there. And then I ended up working there for, what, 3 years or something? Man, that's crazy. Let's see, 2018... Yeah, 2018 I think I started. 19, 20, 21. I think 21 is when I started working at... when I started working at the school that I'm working with now. Man, that's crazy. Those are years that have gone by. That is incredible. Something that you're going to have to worry about if you're a young person and you're watching this. I don't even necessarily want to say if you're young, but if you're just in a situation where like time just keeps flying by you, like the days just fly on by, and then you look back and you think to yourself, wow, how many years have gone by, right? And I don't even remember it. It's going to be a bit of a scary experience. I feel like it's a bit of a scary experience myself. It's incredible to think that, like, you know, Liga, our D&D campaign, has been going on for years at this point. Like, Elos has been a year-long, like, several-year-long project, right? And it still feels like a new campaign to me. You ready to go through that? Yeah. It's just incredible. It kind of gives this a sense of awe, or the sense of, like, you know, size and immenseness to the phrase that this too will come to an end at some point. Let me see if I can find that quote. I think it's "this too shall pass." Let's see. Seem to be Persian. Let's go ahead and bring up our... Well, which one do we go to? Do we go to the scene? I think we go to the scene, right? Yeah. Let me bring this back up. Where is it? Here we go. Bring this back up, do this. Let's try and resize this as soon as this thing will let me. Transform fit to screen. There we go. Let's see. Let me zoom in so that it's more visible on stream here. Yeah, this too shall pass. A Persian adage, translated and used in several languages, reflects on the temporary nature or ephemerality of the human condition, that neither the bad nor good moments in life ever indefinitely last. Let's see history here. Appears in 1848, when an Eastern sage was desired by his sultan to inscribe on a ring the sentiment which, amidst the perpetual change of human affairs, was most descriptive of their real tendency. He engraved on it the words, "And this too shall pass away." It is impossible to imagine a thought more truly and universally applicable to human affairs than that expressed in these memorable words, or more descriptive of that perpetual oscillation from good to evil, and from evil to good, which from the beginning of the world has been the invariable characteristic of the annals of man, and so evidently flows from the strange mixture of noble and generous with base and selfish inclinations, which is constantly found in the children of Adam. Now, if you're anything like me, you read that and it, like, your brain just started, like, not processing anything afterwards. Whenever I read stuff like this, it takes me many attempts to read through it. I wonder if it's like some form of like undiagnosed dyslexia or something like that. But yeah, it was also used in 1852 in the fabled Solomon's Seal. I think this is the one where I heard it from. In it, a sultan requests of King Solomon a sentence that would always be true in times of good or bad. Solomon responds, "This too shall pass away." Yeah. How do you guys feel about that sentence? Like, what feeling or emotion does that leave within you guys when you hear, you know, "This too shall pass away," right? I can't help but think that it's kind of nihilistic in a sense, right? Like, it kind of leaves you with this, like, feeling of emptiness, or this feeling of, like, dejectedness. Everything in time will be lost to the sands of time. Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna turn this down a little bit in my ear as well. There we go. But yeah, it kind of leaves, like, sort of like a sadness in me, I think. But it's not necessarily like a, you know, a sadness that makes you upset. It's more like a sadness that, like, man, this is, I don't know, the word insignificant came into my head, but it doesn't make me feel that either. It's just interesting, I think. It just goes, it's just a very insightful thing, right? But, you know, you look at, like, bring this back a little bit. People going through, like, you know, time just passing on by, and you not realizing necessarily how much time has passed. And then you looking back and being like, holy cow, what have I been doing over these past few years, right? I do not remember any of it. It's like, sometimes I look at myself and I'm like, man, am I really, like, you know, nearly twice as old as, you know, that one memory that I had in my mind back when I was a teenager in high school? Like, am I really the same person since then? How is it that a person can live for so long, right? But it's true, like, that happens. And I think a lot of people's lives are spent trying to come to terms with the fact that that time moves on. Oh my goodness. I mean, it sounds so cliche, honestly, but there is just something so mysterious, so, like, indescribable about the experience of aging, really. The experience of, like, getting older, the experience of, you know, just watching time go by. And, like, I work with people in high school who are from, like, you know, ages, I think it's like ages 11 to like ages 16 or 17 or something like that. And I think to myself, these people, like, I could describe this to them. And, like, they could be like, yeah, no, like, I get it. Like, it sounds, logically it sounds, you know, quite intimidating. And I'm sure there are people in, like, the students in the school as well who would say, man, like, I can, like, I can't understand what you're saying, but I can definitely sympathize with you. But it's like, they're still going to experience this later in life, at some point, right? Whether or not it's, you know, at the age where we're doing it right now, where you guys are hearing about this and where I'm saying it. I don't know. I always stick behind the idea that life is like everything, right? Like, even every single thought that you have, every single, like, judgment or, like, you know, logical deduction or emotional reasoning that you have within you is all confined to life. And I don't think, like, philosophically speaking, there is any way to avoid that, like, at all. This has gotten a bit heavy, I think, but hey, this is what you get with a dinner time with Charles. Speaking of, let me finish my plate up here. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like, I feel like when people make judgments about the afterlife, let me move this over here. No, I want to go onto this scene, I think. Let's go into this scene for a little bit, I think. Does this scene look like it's more presentable? Let me see, do we have Twitch chat on this one? I'm gonna type in something here. Test. Oh yeah, it does show up. Let me check my stream to see how big that actually is for you guys. Where is it? Over here. Is that really what my chat looks like on the screen? Wow. The font looks different on the screen. Incredible. Alright, let's move back over to, I think... Yeah. Alright, let's wait. I'm gonna wait for this to show up here. Yeah. Okay, cool. We're gonna hang out on this screen for a little bit. Which one is that? This one? Yeah. Yeah, okay, that looks fine. But yeah, I just find that there's something all-encompassing and something that you cannot, like, escape from, even logically or, you know, intellectually or even emotionally, from the fact that everything that we can possibly know is all confined within, or all bound within the confines of our experience, right? So, like, if you take away the ability to experience stuff, let's say, like, we remove the ability of the universe to experience things, then I feel like nothing would exist. Like, almost by definition. Because in order for something to exist, it needs to be experienced in my book. And I know a lot of people, you know, I feel like this rides against the idea of common sense. When I was doing my philosophy major, or my philosophy dissertation, I wrote my dissertation on George Berkeley's idealism. And George Berkeley is he's basically like a bishop in, I think it was Ireland? He was a bishop in Ireland who was basically part of the, what were they called? The British empiricists, I think? That included like John Locke and David Hume. And they were all like, everything is all bound in experience. And then, I can't exactly, I need to refresher on this, honestly. But Berkeley's idealism is basically everything is ideas, right? You can't escape ideas, and like you probably heard me talking about this before in the Discord chat. We have a philosophy page, philosophy channel there as well. But I feel like there is something that is true about that, and in researching like the counter arguments to Berkeley's like theories, I don't know why. This might just be my own mental stubbornness, but I don't necessarily feel like any of them have really answered it, right? Let me see if I can bring it up here. We are entering into philosophy territory now, and I did not put that into the title. Actually, what we can do is we can... Oh, where does my... Hold on, I need to go onto here. Create a dashboard. Stream manager. Edit stream info. Yeah, I don't need to know chat highlights, thank you. Oh, actually, can I make chat highlight now? D&D, let's replace this with philosophy of life. There we go. Philosophical. Add tag. I wonder how many other streams have the tag philosophical on it. Anyway, I'm going to test out this highlight message. Let's see, let's highlight this one. What did that do? Ooh. Oh! Wait, can you guys see that on Twitch? Yeah! Oh my goodness, that's incredible! I did not know I could do that. Oh, that's amazing. Oh man. Okay, that should stay up there for the next 20 minutes, I think. Okay, well, there we go. You guys can't see this on the stream, sadly, but I have pinned Liger's message that everything in time will be lost to the sands of time. I am discovering new things every day. Oh, this is incredible. Let me just move this plate aside quickly. Oh. Yeah. Oh yeah, I was going to check up George Berkeley's idealism. Let's do incognito. Open incognito window. Where is my incognito tab? Over here. That's not it. Over here. Actually, we can just use this one. Yeah, so let's head back to... where is it? The live scene? Yeah, let's do this. What am I looking for? Berkeley's idealism. So here we go. He was an idealist. He held that ordinary objects are only collection of ideas which are mind-dependent. That's a big term that he used, which was mind-dependent. Actually, can we find the Stanford... where is it? Stanford EU. This is the one that I use quite a lot. This is... if you were to look up anything philosophical, by the way, I would highly recommend checking up the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. Like, this thing has literally everything in it. And it is an amazing resource philosophically. They also give you citation info as well. So, like, where is it? Adapt, overcome, conquer. Older versions... yeah, so they show you older versions of pages. I'm pretty sure they give you as well... where is it? Let's back up a little bit. Yeah, bibliography. So they actually academically research all of this kind of stuff, right? So yeah, Berkeley's works. Works of George Berkeley, Bishop of Cloyne. Let's see. Essay towards New Theory of Vision. 3 dialogues between Hylas and Philonous. Now this was the main resource that I used for my philosophical essay on this. And basically what it is Berkeley just wrote an argument between these two characters, Hylas and Philonous. And they were making, I think it was Hylas who was saying that, hey, no, objects are real in and of themselves, right? They exist independently of the mind. So if we weren't there, that object will still be there. That rock would still be out there in the quad or whatever it is. And Philonous is well, how can the object be out there, if the concept of object is not present at all, right? So if nobody were there to have acknowledged the rock, or even to imagine the rock being out there in the quad is sort of the plaza between university buildings. It's the best way I think to explain it. But if nobody was able to imagine there being a rock there, and nobody was able to see a rock there, or prove its existence, the rock might as well not be there, right? It's imagine an apple. Now imagine an apple with none of its qualities, right? What you're imagining is not an apple because it has none of its apple-defining qualities to it. It's if a tree falls in the woods and nobody is around, does it make a sound? That is exactly what this thing is talking about. And this thing argues, and I'm sure you've heard me say this before, Liger, this thing argues that no, it does not make a sound, and the tree might not even exist, which is, it's incredible to say. And it does sound a bit absurd. I will no doubt, I'll no doubt, agree with the idea that it sounds absurd. And that's kind of what makes it awesome, I think. It's also... I've also tried to incorporate this into my D&D world. But it does exist because things happen outside our knowledge. The only way that we ever know that things happen outside our knowledge is that we kind of backtrack it. Let's say we go into a room, we leave our room and I've left my phone on the table, right? I leave my room and I know I have a let's say my brother or sister's in, right? And I leave home and I come back and I go upstairs, my phone has moved. I would assume, in that case, that the reason why my phone has moved is because, you know, my brother or sister has moved it, right? In the same way, like, we gain knowledge of things happening outside of our knowledge by seeing that and working backwards from it. So we see the effect and then we work backwards to try and determine a cause, right? But if we weren't there to see that something has changed, none of that would ever happen and we would have no knowledge of it. So we would not have knowledge of things happening or that thing happening outside of our knowledge, which is, you know, funky to say. Oh, I love it. It's amazing. It's not a widely held theory anymore at all. Like, people have moved on from this whole debate about, you know, imagism, which is the thought that, like, our brains operate in terms of images. I can't remember what the modern, where it's at right now, like where this sort of like field of philosophy is at right now. But I do know. Let me see. Arguments against Berkeley's idealism. Perhaps the most obvious objection to idealism is it makes real things no different from imaginary ones. Okay, let's see if we can get a... Oh, here we go. Hidden structures and intentional mechanisms. The related notions of regularity and laws of nature are essential to the workability of Berkeley's idealism. Let's see, scientific explanation. Oh yeah, it does fly against the, you know, common scientific understanding of how things work, which I think is honestly what killed it. Even though I don't think science has actually like fully like addressed it, right? They're just like, there's overwhelming evidence, and I mean, I guess that, like, it is, you know, a good counter to it. Like, there is overwhelming evidence that, in terms of the way that we understand the world, that it seems like things do happen outside our knowledge. So therefore, Berkeley's wrong. Things don't happen. Things do happen outside our knowledge. Berkeley is wrong. Therefore, we've moved on from him, right? Let's see. Unperceived object. So let's just read this one out. There was a young man who said God must think it exceedingly odd if he finds that the tree continues to be when no one's about in the quad. So what this is basically saying here is, there was a young man who said God must think it exceedingly odd if he finds that the tree continues to be when no one's about in the quad. So yeah, this is basically saying, oh yeah, that was another point that Berkeley made. Berkeley said that the reason why things stay in existence when nobody is around to see it is because God is omniscient, so God can see everything. What this is basically saying that God might find it exceedingly odd that if there is a tree, if a tree continues to exist when nobody is looking at it, then that's odd. That's what he says there. What's this? Another strategy, however, is suggested by Berkeley's inference in to some other spirit, a strategy summarized in the further limerick. Dear sir, your astonishment's odd. I am always about in the quad, and that is why the tree continues to be yours since observed by yours faithfully God. Yeah, this is the limerick that we use here. And remember, this dude is a bishop, so he takes God's existence as, you know, granted. I feel like, in terms of like the Berkeleyan argument here for like how things continue to be, I feel like God is not strictly essential to this argument. I feel like what is essential at the very least is nature. I feel like every essential quality that this argument ascribes to God, we can give those same qualities to the concept of nature, or, you know, the universe itself, which I think comes with less religious baggage, less religious or theocratic assumptions, theological assumptions, should I say. I know that philosophy nowadays has kind of moved further and further away from theology, Let me see, anything else that we can get here? Possibility of error? If there is no mind-dependent object against which to measure my ideas, but rather my ideas to help constitute the object, how can my idea ever fail? How is error ever possible? So if nothing is mind-independent, so if things exist outside of the mind... Okay, I can't understand this right now. Spirits and causation. Yeah, so Berkeley also mentioned that there are only two things that exist in the universe. One of them is the observer, and then the other one is the observee. So you have the thing that's being looked at, and then the thing that does the looking. And he said that the spirit, like, you know, the human spirit and, like, you know, the conscious spirit is what does the observation. And then everything else is just things that are being observed. But anyway, let's relate this to D&D, because I have actually built this idea into the foundation of my world in D&D, because I am such a huge fucking nerd. So what I've basically done, let me see if I can get my OneNote up here. Let me see. Ethereal Chaos. Do we have anything here on this? Let me see. Cycles? Let's see. Trying to see where the origin... Here we go. Man, this was made in 2017. That's incredible. Okay, how do I move over to my OneNote document here? So if I do this and this, and then let me try and grab my OneNote. Here we go. Done. Alright, are you gonna update it? Brainpower in D&D? Impossible with Lilith, Dune, and Garden around. Garden's not that dumb. Is he? I feel like he has intelligence. Garden. Oh, you have 8 intelligence. Okay. I am probably wrong then. Let's see. Bianca's got 13. Bianca's smart. Lotus? 15. Is Lotus the smartest? Dune 12? Dune's intelligent. Storm. Okay, so it looks like Black Lotus is the smartest person in the party. Alright, anyway. OneNote. Are you going to load for me, please? Here we go. Transition. So you guys might not be able to read this, but what I've got here is... So I have 3 true gods of my setting, right? So this was information about my last campaign. These 3 gods are the things that were... These 3 things are the spirits that observe other things. So we have Aparte up here. This is the god who imitates all the other gods, which the mortals of the world worship. Back in the first D&D campaign that I ran, I had this plot point that he had the entire, like, Favorinian pantheon, and he had, like, a bunch of other gods as well. But they were all just this one god mimicking all of them to try and take advantage of the faith of the people of the inner planes. So she had the power to create, you know, all of these manifestations of these many different myriad of mortal entities. And she gained power from everyone who worshipped them, right? So that was her plan to try and, like, take over the material plane. So she would get everyone to be religious and convert them into, you know, clerics and whatnot, and then she would send her angels down. They'd be like, oh, this is a divine blessing from heaven, we are not going to resist. Therefore, she takes it over and then she makes it into a new upper plane. That was her plan. So that's the first observer. Then we have Priscilla, who is the deity of the inner planes. I have a link here, actually. Ooh. Here we go. What have I got written here? Let me close this down a bit. Is this visible? I don't think this is visible yet. I need to find a way to make this more presentable on stream. But yeah, so Priscilla, she is the deity of the inner planes. She is the original conscious for the inner planes of existence. She is trapped deep within the ethereal plane in a prison erected by Apate, after she betrayed Priscilla by breaking a concord between the two entities. Let's see. So, Priscilla is another entity who observe things, so they want to eat our livers. I wouldn't say they want to eat your livers. They just want to convert the inner planes into an upper plane, is what Apate wanted. Priscilla here is the deity of the inner planes, so she basically observed the inner planes into existence, whereas Apate observed the upper planes into existence, and everything there was based on, you know, the way that she saw patterns in this thing called the ethereal chaos, which is kind of like this nebulous bubbling stew from which all of existence comes from. So, like, reality is literally just... Have you ever looked at, like white noise on a TV? And have you ever started to see, like, you know, patterns? Or, like, illusions of patterns in that? That's basically what Priscilla, Apate, and the other god Nerul did for their respective planes of existence. So we are basically patterns in white noise to these gods, right? And then these patterns became so complex that the illusion of meaning came about. And now everything has, you know, a form of meaning to it. I need to be careful with saying that because the gods are the ones who assigned the meaning onto these patterns, right? Because patterns are what? Meaning in areas where there is literally no meaning. Right? It's your brain trying to make sense of things. So the patterns that the deity saw were meaningful to them. And that's how, you know, the upper planes came about, the inner planes came about, the lower planes came about. By these three entities basically observing things into existence. Observing patterns. Let's see. Priscilla wants to prevent Armageddon again so her creations on the material plane can exist without fear of Apate. As the original conscious of the inner planes, and the youngest of three consciousnesses. Oh, I haven't finished that. Interesting. Let's see, which page was I on? Can I just go back? I can. Yeah. So, we have Apate, deity of the upper planes, Priscilla, deity of the inner planes, and then we have Nerul, deity of the lower planes. Now, Nerul is actually, like, he's actually an entity that I borrowed from, where is it? From Faerun, I believe? I believe he's a Faerunian entity. Let's see. Nerul. D&D. Ah, Greyhawk, huh? He's a Greyhawk kind of guy? Yeah, so Nerul is the god of death. And the reason why I went for Nerul is back before I was really aware of, you know, what type of campaign that I wanted to create. I just looked up, you know, D&D God of Death, and then I picked the name Nerul. It's basically how I came about with this name. And then I, you know, kind of rejiggied him to fit in with the lore of my world. So he would be a different Nerul to, like, you know, the Nerul of Greyhawk. He'd basically be like a dimensional counterpart or whatever, I'd imagine. But yeah, so Nerul observed the lower plane into existence, and everything was based on the patterns that he saw there. Apate observed the upper planes, and then Priscilla, because if you imagine, like, in the ethereal chaos, right? Imagine, like, spatially. Like, you just have, like, this, you know, bowl of soup, and it's, like, bubbling, and, like, the bits of the soup are just making patterns. Well, Apate was created by the soup, and she was able to observe herself so she can, like, disintegrate afterwards, right? That's the whole idea of this ethereal chaos, this soup. If you can't see... Very simple, thank you. If you can't see... what's the word? If you're not looking at something, then it'll break apart, right? So if the gods aren't looking at something, it'll cease to be, right? But at the same time, now that things have gotten more complex, there are a lot more observers in the world, rather than just the gods. Because every character, every unique individual, and like every creature is able to observe things. But if it's the case that a creature is unable to observe or be observed, then they are removed from the world. That's it. There is like no reviving them at that point. They are just completely and 100% erased from the world. They are just like, they just sink down from the surface of the ethereal chaos and into the bottom. That's how it works basically, where they're like, you know, disintegrated and they are pulled apart, and then like their bits kind of like almost become like things that other deities and other like original consciousnesses can create new patterns from, and then create more things from. But if you imagine it spatially, so you have Apate up here, you have Priscilla in the middle, and then you have Nerul down here. Their lands all started to, like, all the patterns that they saw, like the domain of their purview, all like became so close together that they eventually overlapped. And at one point it was possible for the upper plane, lower plane, and inner planes to all literally walk to one another. So the solution is to eat the soup to become immortal. Yeah, I mean, if you could eat the soup, then then the campaign would be inside the stomach of inside your stomach, right? It would be a campaign where you have to fight off against digestion and cause as much indigestion as possible to help keep yourselves alive. Oh no, we're getting into war territory. Thank you for that suggestion there, Ligo. Much appreciated. But yeah, so their domains all started to crisscross. But the upper and lower plane deities were like very old compared to the inner plane deity, who was considered like very naive, right? So she was this very naive, very easily manipulated individual. But there was something special about what she saw, because she took elements from the upper plane, she took elements from the lower plane, and started creating new patterns from those. Whereas the upper and the lower plane, did I say inner plane earlier? I meant lower plane. But the upper and lower plane deities, they have to rely on the patterns that they saw themselves, right? They have not been able to see these other, like, you know, upper plane not being able to see the lower plane, or lower plane not being able to see the upper plane, before the inner plane was created and like connected the two, right? So the inner plane was uniquely privileged by being able to basically observe things from the upper and lower planes. And this is a big reason, it's, well, a big thing for one of the very important NPCs in my world, known as Anima. She is the spirit of life. She was one of the first entities created by Priscilla, by the inner plane deity. And her basic gist is she is life incarnate, right? As long as there is life, Anima is around. So as soon as Priscilla, like, saw the pattern of life, Anima came out of it, right? So Anima is like a personification of life itself. But the big thing with Anima is Priscilla saw how the lower planes worked, and she identified that creatures there could die, right? In the upper planes, creatures couldn't die. Creatures were immortal, because that's kind of like Apate's perfect vision of what existence should be like, right? There is no end to it, right? It is like this perfect, omnipotent, like, ever-loving, ever-giving thing. Whereas down in the lower plane, like, life was considered like trash. Life was considered like disposable. So you could be like an angel from the upper planes. You could go to the lower planes, for instance, right? You could go to the lower planes and you could just get annihilated. Like, you could just get erased from the face of, you know, the cosmos, from the primordial soup. You'd sink from the surface of reality, basically. So Priscilla saw that this was a thing that could happen in the lower planes, and she was like, you know, I don't much like how in the upper planes creatures can live forever, right? Because now look what they become. They become like machines who are dedicated to this thing that is greater than the individual. But I just want people to be themselves. And I think the best way to prevent my people, like the elves, the humans, all of those people, from delving into this kind of, like, you know, holy immortality is to implement death into the world. And Anima was really fucking pissed off by this. Anima really, really hated this. As you can imagine, right? So while Anima is the spirit of life. One second. While Anima is the spirit of life here, she is unable to change Priscilla's mind, because Priscilla is the one who observed her into the universe, so she is kind of dependent on Priscilla's continued awareness, if you will. Let's head back over to our Foundry game. Ooh, there we go. So yeah, Priscilla... Anima can't really override Priscilla at all. And this has sent Anima into like a near perpetual cycle of depression, where she can't really, like, she loves everything that lives, but she lives in this tragic existence where everything that she has spent so much meticulous time working on and trying to perfect now is going to come to an end. And Anima does not think that this is natural at all. Like, Anima thinks that this is the worst betrayal ever, right? Because the NC that, like, created everything that she is aware of, more or less, has, like, introduced something that goes completely and utterly counter to life itself. Like, death, right? You can't really do... well, just, like... you can't really be the spirit of life if, you know, death is around. So, she's pissed off at Priscilla, like, near constantly. And every time she sees, like, every time she gets close to someone, she has to live with the fact that this someone is going to die and there is nothing she can do about it, right? So that's kind of the story there. Now, as for where are the gods right now, where are these, like, 3 individuals right now? In the first campaign I did, the basic premise is one of these gods had been killed. Now, people thought that this god was no different to the other gods, which are actually just Aparte, but this god was actually the god of the lower planes. So, a bunch of heroes had killed Neryl somehow, which was thought to be impossible even by the gods themselves. The creations of Priscilla have just been so innovative that they've managed to kill a god, really. So that basically kicked off the entire first adventure that we did. And basically what happened is, in order to kill the god, they had to shatter his divine spark. Those divine sparks entered into the adventurers who killed him, and they needed the divine spark, or the party needs to get these adventurers, get their divine sparks all together, so that they can stop the invasion of the upper planes, who thought that now that the other god is gone, no one here is contesting me, so I can just go into the inner planes and take it over. The inner plane god, by the way, was tricked, like, a very, very, very long time ago. Like, many histories ago, right? Even, like, my timeline for this Elos game is, like, you know, a day in comparison to how long ago this was. So they almost destroyed the world. Let's see. I think so. But it was... they almost destroyed the world in that they had, like, the divine sparks, right? Nobody else was able to... nobody else even knew what this thing was. And with the inner plane god sealed away, like these many histories ago, the only other god there was Aparte, who would, you know, come down and try and stop him. So, yeah, they did plunge the world into a bit of a mess, because it, like, literally changed the cosmic balance of everything. By removing one of the 3 only players of the game. But at the same time, it also was there to save, quote-unquote, save reality from turning into, like, this, you know, celestial, almost like machine, if you will. where all the individuals are like, you know, less than what they serve, or like what, maybe not the right way to put it, but I hope you know what I mean. The people of the inner plane didn't want to become like the angels above, and the spirits of the inner plane definitely didn't want that either, because that ran completely counter to what Priscilla wanted and what Priscilla had imagined for them. But yeah, many histories ago, the gods of the upper plane and the lower plane saw the inner plane god as very naive, so they kind of conspired against her. They were like, listen, we're gonna trap the inner plane god, so then I take one half of the, you know, the inner planes, you take the other half, and, you know, we're good, right? And both sides were like, yeah, no, this is cool, we'll trap her. They ended up trapping her in a divinely sealed, like, chamber, or like a tomb, if you will, or even like a plane, within like the deep ethereal. Like, this is, I don't believe that anyone ever in my setting is going to ever be able to access that. Maybe that's a bit hyperbolic, because I can imagine there being a pretty good story there. But it's basically one of the core set rules of my world that Priscilla cannot escape. There is no, like, retrieval of Priscilla at all. Like, Priscilla is basically gone at this point. But she is still conscious. She's not dead. She's kind of like in almost like this dreamlike state where she can still technically observe the world. It's just she's so far divorced from it, she cannot interact with it. So once they did that, they were like, okay, now I'm going to take all this land. And that's how the cycle started. There were like, I think there's been like 8 cycles or something like that. And a cycle is every time a god takes over the majority control of the inner planes, the other god eventually, ultimately the war does turn into the side of the other person, and the other person obliterates history for the inner planes. And then that keeps repeating over and over again until you got to the 8th cycle, which was where the last adventure, or my last campaign, took place. And with the 8th cycle, the party managed to remove Aparte from the equation, right? It's left up in the air as to whether or not Aparte was killed, or whether or not, you know, her divine sparks are around the material plane, or what. Like, we don't really know what happened there. Though one player character did manage to acquire all of the divine sparks within themselves, and they have gone off to make their own plane. They are separate, completely separate from, you know, the inner plane. Least of all because the spirits of the inner plane don't really want a deity walking around, you know, walking around their land. That's not, you know, Priscilla, of course. So they kind of like barred that individual from ever coming into the material plane, but it's really difficult for them to do that. So this player character can still come in, and the spirit don't really know about it. Yeah. Thank you for that. I feel like it's I feel like it does sound a bit more complicated now that I realized I spent like maybe about 40 minutes talking about this. But yeah. So where things stand right now, none of the gods are about anymore. Everyone knows that all the gods were fake. And nobody really believes in deities anymore. People still get their power, like clerics and paladins, still get their power from concepts themselves. So you can have a paladin devoted to the idea of justice, and they believe in justice so much that the universe itself, like not like an individual deity, but like the world itself, like the fabric of the universe itself, gives this paladin, you know, divine power. And of course you do get, like, you know, clerics and paladins who do serve, like, who might get their power from individuals of great strength. Like, you know, maybe like a saint, or like, you know, in Garden's case, like a magical Chiron, right? I feel like I want to ask you about those deities as well, like the two deities that Garden worships. Actually, what can you tell me about them? Because I know you've mentioned the Chiron. What about the Ash Rider? What can you tell me about the Ash Rider? For those of you not, for those of you who need an explanation, which is probably everyone who watches this, apart from Liger and myself, Garden has two holy amulets on him, two holy symbols. One to a Chiron, and another one to an Ash Rider. And I just want to understand what the player kind of like understands of those two entities, right? Oh yeah, you did actually. Sorry, I know you left me a question on Discord, which was what was it? What would be a logical reason for somebody to have learned Celestial? I'm sorry I couldn't get to that. My brain just wasn't in a good position to answer. So essentially those two are the yin and yang of Garden, one being the good half and the other being the bad half. Ah, I see. Okay, so they represent two different parts of Garden. Okay, that makes a lot of sense, I think. Yeah. Yeah, I can work with that, I think. I'm getting ideas in my head right now, and I can't tell you what they are. But yeah, a logical reason for somebody to have learned Celestial. So I've been trying to think of this, and I don't really think there are communities, at least none that I know of right now, who actually speak Celestial. But I can totally see them actually being able to do so. One thing that does come to my mind, however, is, as I mentioned, there have been, because Garden's been through some horrible stuff before. Yeah, okay, I see. So, as I mentioned, the upplane deity was, removed, right? Don't know, it's nebulous as to what actually happened to them, like whether or not they died or whatnot. But with that, all of her angels who served her have gone through this moral crisis, and many of them have come to the inner planes to try and find themselves, right? To try and, understand what these entities are that, I just noticed that my chat doesn't stay on the screen. I should try and sort that out, but let me finish my point first. So a lot of these angels have come down to the inner plane to try and figure out, what it is they've been missing. What part of, the cosmological balance have they misunderstood to, have had their creator, basically, perish. So it's entirely feasible that there are these angels that have kind of, guided the... Let's see, that was about 200 years ago. No, 20 years ago, I think. Yeah, about 20 years ago, this fall of the upper planes happened. That would not have been enough time to create communities. But yeah, I can totally imagine there'd be communities who do keep in contact with Celestials, or who had kept in contact with Celestials before, who would know Celestial. It could also be a scholarly thing. So around the time Garden was too, yeah. It can be a scholarly thing as well, a lot of scholars do learn Celestial so that they can read Celestial passages. Another logical reason for somebody to have learned Celestial. So it could be, your mentor was able to learn Celestial and had a few Celestial artifacts. What else? It could be that you communicate with your... so this is a suggestion. You can communicate with, the Chiron and the Ash Rider as in Celestial. That could totally be a way that you could do it. As for other reasons, there are plenty of reasons why. Those are the two that I can imagine straight up. But if you have any other suggestions for it, then feel free by all means. It is your character. I am here to only give you inspiration. Whew. You did have an idea. Ooh, I would like to hear it. In the meantime, I am going to get myself something more to drink. I'll be right back. Okay. I am running low on apple juice, so I am just having some water. Whew, man. Oh, an anime has started streaming. Let's see what our dear friend is streaming today. Oh, they are streaming Master Duel and they are using Tri-Brigades. That is interesting. Whew. Yeah, so I might not have mentioned this, but I did not stream the entirety of last week, simply because I was too involved in Pokemon. As I mentioned at the start, I had been binge playing that thing. Oh yeah, there was what was it? Tangent on Tangent. So let's finish this point that we have about Garden here. So essentially what I was thinking is, during the time Garden was really depressed and losing his family, during the time he fainted due to starvation, he was within range of the domain of the Chiron, and it contacted him in his coma before being rescued by the Auron. Ah, oh, okay, so yeah, I am gonna copy this. I am going to paste this on your page in my notes. Let's see, this is the wrong notebook. Elos. Yeah, let's boop, boop. And I can show you what I have for the characters. Where is it? Play characters. If we go down to Liger, Garden of Flowers. So here's what I have for Garden right now. Let me just copy and paste this down here. With time you slowly develop a story. Yeah. The best stories are developed with careful consideration and a lot of time prepared. So, raised in the minor, parents died, taken in by Lotus Auron priest who spoke at length about mythical celestial creatures extolling the virtues of peace and serenity. He believed everyone benefits from a world of peace, from plants and animals to people and cities. He urged Garden to go out into the world and bring whatever peace to it he can. From Imano was transported via Plantis Indaria, city of Animus on the Corazon River bank. His family comes from the Turtleback Wayfarer clan. His biggest fear is seeing/hearing how he has failed others, especially close ones, and being no help to anyone he wants to protect. Originated from his ability to save his parents after being called worthless for not even protecting the ones he loves. Yeah, so essentially what I think during time was really depressed after losing his family during the time he fainted. Starvation, Domain of Chiron contacted him. Ooh. Okay. I'm just gonna quickly see if there's let's see. Okay. Yeah, okay, I don't have any hidden information on this page about plans that I have for the character itself, so that's good. I probably shouldn't have read that on stream, actually, but... But yeah, so, there's a tangent that we went on a tangent on tangent, and I feel like, what was it? What was that thing that I told you to remind me about earlier? So it was about, what was it? Job, McDonald's, getting a Switch? Was that it? I'm just going to scroll up and chat here. Yeah, sounds good and work. Sounds like a good beginner job. I'll remind you if you remember. Yeah. The McDonald's stuff, yeah. So, I can't entirely remember the context, sadly. But let's also head back to Foundry. Boop. Here we go. Let's minimize this so you guys get a great image. This image is by this artist down here, by the way. Madonna. I'm not using it for any like commercial use or anything, so I believe it's okay to display this image on stream. I did try to search up this artist beforehand on Twitter, or not on Twitter, on the internet, but it did not find me it did not find me the person who drew this. But yeah, so the reason why... Do I want to talk about this, actually? As long as you give credit to the artist, it should be fine. Lovely. There's some personal information that I want to kind of like... what's the word? Leave out, but I'm not sure what the best way to go about doing that is. It's about like why I started working at McDonald's, but I'm gonna leave that one aside for now, and just say, while I was working at McDonald's, it literally felt like a struggle to like pay to stay afloat, and I believe a lot of people go through this type of thing. Unless you're privileged and you have like, when I say privileged, like unless you have like, you know, a something to circumvent it. I feel like nearly everyone has to go through this type of thing, right? Maybe it's just like a you know, a socioeconomic thing. But like, you know, paying bills, it really felt like, yeah, it was just mess. You had to work like near 40 hours a week in that kind of place and when I say that kind of place, I mean really noisy, a lot of people telling you what to do, and a lot of like 8-hour shifts where you literally are just on one station for the entire time, and that's it, right? Hugely, hugely, hugely uninspiring, I found it. And it was just about like paying or like putting in the hours to just cover, you know, existence. And that type of thing is like really uninspiring. And I really hope that society can like find its way out of that type of thing, because there's a lot of brilliant minds that are caught in these types of socioeconomic traps, almost, I think. That, you know, they have to spend a lot of their resources. Like, I had a university degree at the time. And I ended up still being at McDonald's for, like, nearly 3 years or something like that. Granted, you need more than... It's more than, like, just a university degree that you need in order to find a job, right? Like, the only reason why I got this job that I'm with now is because my friend recommended me to an agent. So that's basically the only way that I got out of McDonald's. And I am ever so grateful for her for doing that, because now I feel like, you know, the things that I do has purpose. And they actually, like, you know, pay me to sustain myself, and I don't need to, you know, drain myself in order to do, you know, in order to do the work that I need to do to survive, basically. But yeah, it was super uninspiring, completely. Like, I felt like it was a dead-end job. I might have mentioned this before on stream, that it really felt like, to me, working in like a restaurant, not necessarily like, it's no fault of McDonald's at all, it's like the type of job that it is rather than the employer themselves. But working in that kind of like role, for me, I felt like my purpose there was to satisfy the hunger, the temporary hunger of people who would just come back again and again and again. It felt like you really weren't doing anything. Or at least the goal that you were achieving was really not in your own interests, right? Let me think. Yeah. There was literally just like a job where you have to like just stay afloat, honestly. And I feel like the thing that prevented me heavily from finding another job was a lack of, you know, courage in myself. I wouldn't even say a lack of courage, but like a lack of desire for change. Even though it was like, you know, a terrible day-to-day experience for me personally. Like, I have a hearing sensitivity, and you know, I have like bills to pay. All I just want to do is stay in my room and play video games all day. That's literally like, you know, one of the only things I want to do. In reality, you provided a meal to those who didn't have time to make their own food for their day. Yeah. Yeah. I want to say people can get different meanings from it for sure. And there are definitely ways that we can spin. Like, if somebody were to tell me, hey, my job is pointless, I work at McDonald's, I feel like, you know, I'm just doing the same thing day in, day out. I feel like if I wanted to, like, make them feel better about themselves, about, you know, the meaning of what they do, I feel like I could come up with something. Like, I could probably say, you know, no, what you're doing is you're helping other people in your own situation. You're helping your colleagues get through the day, get through, you know, this time period in their life. You're helping to support, more than just like helping to feed other people, you're helping to support those around you, right? I could say something like that, and like, that stuff is all actually completely true. And I'm not saying it as if to say that like I'm telling them a lie, because I'm not. I'm really honestly trying to find for them like a way that can help them out, like in terms of motivation and things like that. So like, there are definitely ways that you can talk about these types of things in a motivating way, but that, even though that can happen, that puts the onus on them. Like, how would I say this? It almost feels like I would be the one at fault if I didn't change the way that I thought about my job to satisfy, to something more motivating, right? And I feel like that is dangerous, because ultimately that's you rejecting your own thoughts. That's you rejecting like a part of you that really, really dislikes what you're doing. And ultimately, everyone can say the most motivating things to you in the world. However, if you're really not into whatever it is that you're doing, if you're really like stuck and struggling in life, let's say you hear a motivating thing and it keeps you motivated for a day or two, but then it comes back, like the doldrum comes back, right? Then, yeah, it's those hard thoughts in the back of your head, those bad thoughts. They're not... I know what you mean by bad. I feel like I want to be careful with saying that it's bad, because that again is kind of diminishing your own thoughts, right? Because you're labeling something that's cropping up naturally in your mind as something that is unwanted or something that is not appreciated, right? Let me move on over to the live scene here. But yeah, it kind of diminishes how you feel about it, right? And I feel like that's important, especially when you're going through a time like that, right? Where all that's expected of you is to get on with the work and do, you know, your job, just so that you can barely afford to pay all of your rent, all of your like bills, all of your arrears, all of your grocery shopping, all of your cat food, until the next paycheck. Because in that type of situation, you really don't have room. Nobody is really there to support you, you know, emotionally in those like 8 hours of the day when you're working there, right? Because everyone's all too busy struggling with the same thing that you are, struggling to get enough money, struggling to get recognized to get more money, struggling to deal with, you know, customers, struggling to deal, should I say, like, you know, customers who make your life harder, struggling to deal with problems in the kitchen, struggling to deal with managerial staff, struggling with like other co-workers who are much less tolerant of these thoughts that you seem to be. No one there is going to have the time or inclination. Should I just say, it's not an environment that is conducive to energy that can be directed towards emotional maintenance, right? So I think in that type of situation, what you would really need is you really need someone there to help you sort out your own emotional states. Yeah? Someone, when I say sort out, like, just be a sounding board, help you understand what it is that you're, you know, what you really want to do, right? And what's holding you back. Like, for me, I think the thing that was holding me back, and the reason why I didn't personally go out and get a new job, even though I tried, is kind of like a fear of the unknown, honestly. Like, to a certain degree, I remember going into work some days and thinking, oh man, I've actually just forgotten what I was about to say. Oh yeah, it's something about, you know, going into work and thinking that I've survived X number of years in this job already. I can survive another, you know, few months, right? I feel like that's a bit of a fallacious argument, though. Because what you're doing is you're getting reason, or you're logicking your way out of something. Where what you need to really do is you need to really emotion your way out of it, right? Because when you say something like, yeah, I'm really not enjoying my job, but, you know, I've survived this long, I can survive more, I can survive longer. What you're doing there is you're kind of like quashing whatever emotional issues you have with work. You're putting them aside and you're not really giving them the chance to necessarily breathe, honestly. Which, I understand you need to do that sort of thing in certain situations, right? Let's say you have like a really important task on your hands. You don't have time to be emotional about it, right? Because you need to go and get that task done. But if it's a constant issue like that, like if it keeps happening week after week after week, month after month, year after year, then something has got to change. It also involves the most precious resource everyone has. I feel like what you're... Yeah, would you like to enlighten us what the most precious resource everyone has is? I don't want to make assumptions about what I imagine you're going to say next. Time. You can never get that back. Exactly. And that loosely comes back to the point that we made a bit earlier about, you know, how it seemed that, like, you know, year after year seemed to have gone by. And, you know, you look back and you're like, when did it become 2023? When did it become 2025? When did it become 2030? Like, you know, less and less these days. But I, for instance, was born before the year 2000. So, more people nowadays are born after 2000. A lot of people who I work with, well, not my colleagues, but the students who I work with, they were all born after the year 2000. So I look at them and I'm like, you were born after 2000? What is this, right? Because I'm used to people being born in, like, the 90s. And even many people from, like, the gaming group that I play D&D with, are born in the 2000s as well. And it's like, it's incredible to me. And it's like, you know, when did that happen? When did it become a thing? Yeah. Like, when did it become a thing that the majority of people who I interact with nowadays were born after the year 2000? Like, that's incredible. Remember back to, like, when you're in school, right? When you're in high school, secondary school, anything like that. a lot of your social circles were within your your year group or your your grade or whatever like that. At least that's what I think. It was definitely the case for me. Like, all of the social groups in my secondary school were all like based within year groups. You didn't really have much, let's say like year 9 to year 10 crossover. That didn't really happen too much unless you had like a sibling. So then, I remember after leaving secondary school thinking like what year I am in compared to like the other people who I'm with, right? Like, high school or secondary school for us ends at year 11. Then you go into sixth form, which would be the equivalent of year 12. Then sixth form second year would be the equivalent of year 13. Then university would be year 14, university year 2, year 15, year 16, year 17, so on and so forth. And then like let's say you finish your 3-year course, and let's say that's like year 19 for you or whatever. Then you go to your first year of job. You'd be in year 20 at that point. I guess for you Americans, just replace the word year with grade, right? Like you'd be in grade like what, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. You just like keep adding +1 onto where you'd expect you to be if you stayed in, if grades went up that high, right? And every time, like, I feel like that is because of this mentality that was left behind, at least in my school, where you don't really interact that much with people from other year groups. So, one of my best friends, like, I believe she was born like 2001, 2002 or something. And she is much more an adult than I am, for sure. Like, she is much more world savvy. Whereas me, I just spent the majority of my time in my bedroom playing video games. As I think many, many people do. But no, she's like, she's a proper adult. She's got like, a mortgage. She's got like, a significant other. She's got like, other people who I know have children now. And they're younger than me. And I'm just like, well, I hope you look after them well, but like, damn, what has time done, But that just goes to show that, like, I almost feel like it's a bit of a childish concept, right? Like, it's a concept that comes about because of your youth, really. Now, I know all of this makes me sound like an old-ass man. I'm not, like, overly old. Like, I'm 30 years old. Which, I feel is old sometimes, honestly. I like think back to myself and like, mentally I still feel like 17. And I feel like that's going to be the case for like pretty much everyone. Everyone is going to like, I feel like everyone should decide on an age that they will perpetually be mentally, right? Based on like, I don't know, whether it's an age that would like, you had a particularly strong year, or, maybe an age that you feel like your ideal self should be. What age do you think, like, that you feel like you are, right? You have no idea for yourself. I think the only reason why I say that I still feel 17 is I decided at one point that I am going to be forever 17 and nothing is going to change it. Not necessarily because of, I don't know how to describe it. It's not because I don't want to be an adult, right? It's not because I don't want to be a kid. It's not like, I don't want to be 21, 22, 23, 24, or whatever. It's more just like, I thought 17 was a pretty cool year for me. So I'm going to be forever 17, mentally. Even though, like, my mental age has obviously, our mental age is obviously going to continue to, increase and increase the more experience we get. Oh man, that makes me think of, I know this is a sudden departure, but like that makes me think of like immortal characters in fiction. Like, how does this stuff play out for them, right? Because they're only going to keep getting more and more information. They're only going to keep learning and learning. Like, that trend in anime where you have like, the 1,000-year-old like, little girl, right? Who's you know, looks like the youngest of the bunch, but she is like, you know, an immortal entity. Like, how does that like work for characters like that? I think something like that is like impossible to really like comprehend. And I feel like writing those types of characters is just, if it's not being done for a gag, it's actually like honestly really difficult. Because we can't really, I think this is the same problem that elves have. Because we can't really put ourselves into their shoes. We can't really just be like, you know, we can't really just muster up like, you know, 10,000 years worth of experience. Like, what does that even look like, right? In order to make that character, you would need to, in order to make that character well, you would need to do so much world building, so much history. You need to be doing like so much backstory, world building. You need to know like the kings and queens. You need to know like all of that sort of stuff. We can never truly know unless we could age that long. Yeah, exactly. I guess the best thing that we can do is we can ask people who have already lived for that long, right? But at the same time, that's not going to be the same to like having that experience yourself, right? Like almost by definition, it's totally not going to be the same. But yeah, so yeah, point of the story, just bringing it back a bit. McDonald's really didn't pay as much, and it felt like a bit of a trap for me personally because, you know, my own situation. And yeah, since I started working at the secondary school, man, it has felt like I have purpose, right? Because I feel like now every day when I go in, it's not just, you know, satisfying someone's hunger. It's not just going in making sure the kid has all of his pencils. It's not just, you know, going in and, you know, making sure people don't get into fights, making sure that people don't have, you know, don't misunderstand their peers because of, you know, SEMH reason, which stands for social, emotional, mental health. But it more really feels like, you know, you're doing your part to make, you know, people around you better, right? I know that's like, that's not, I laugh at that because it's not actually something that you can really control, right? You can't really go up to someone when they're a kid and be like, hey, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z with you while you're in school, and you're going to be a better person for it. No, you don't get to decide whether or not they're a better person because of it, right? And it's also weird because, like, you don't really ever get to see the effect that them not having you there would have had on them, right? So let's say you work with like a kid in high school. Yeah, you can only guide them. But let's say you work with a kid in high school. You help them out, and you know they go on to become like a law professor, right? When they're like, you know, 50 or something. You cannot really know what they would have become without your help beforehand because it didn't happen. Like, you can speculate, of course, but at the end of the day, the choice of, you know, that kid to become a law professor was his own choice, his or her own choice. So it's really difficult to gauge, you know, what effect you have on someone like that. But even though you can't really tell that kind of stuff, there's still worthiness in, at least I find a lot of worthiness. Oh bless, one of the students who I work with has a lot of anxiety about just like being unable to write like an English assignment or something like that. And they think that it's, you know, gonna prevent them from getting a job in the future. And, you know, just being able to go up to children like that, being able to go up to, not even children, just like people, going up to people like that, and just being like, hey, listen, like, I understand what you're saying, like, it sounds like it's really a lot, right? Like, you're going through a lot of this anxiety because you have, you know, whether it's ADD, ODD, whether it's, you know, like ASD or anything like that, no matter what it is that's, you know, getting in your way, at the end of the day, it's still a person. Did I forget what my point was midway through? Wow. I'm getting a bit tired. Yeah. But regardless of all of that, like, at the end of the day, what we're really doing is we're like trying to help people with their anxiety, honestly. Like, whether or not, you know, people think that their anxiety is warranted, a lot of people do not think their anxiety is warranted, and it leads to a really, really terrible trap, which is like, you know, how would I describe this? So let's say I get given a maths paper, right? And I've been to all of the same classes that all my peers have gone into, and you know, we do the math assignment, but I struggle like a lot with it, for instance, right? Let's say it's not me. Let's say it's you, right? So let's say you're in a class, been to all the classes with everyone else, you've learned all the stuff, you do the assignment, and the assignment is unreasonably difficult for you, and you cannot understand why. You know all of this material, you've been taught all of this stuff, but it's just whenever you do the assignment, something unexplained happens within you that prevents you from being able to do it, right? And you're like, it makes no sense. Why are you not able to do this type of stuff, right? Like, I can imagine if I were in that situation, my brain would be like, it literally makes no sense why you're unable to do this. But what does that do to you, right? Like, when your brain does that flip from like being unable to do this to being from like, you know, not understanding the work to saying that you should be able to do this, but you can't for some reason, right? What you're using, what's going on there is your brain is using logic against you. Your brain is like, listen, you have to be able to do this because of X, Y, and Z. Because you've been to all the classes, because you're not dumb, and because, you know, the teacher favors you as like the best student in the class. But when it just comes to the test, you can't do it, right? Makes no sense. Surely if you've been able to do all the work in class, and, you know, you have all of this stuff in your favor, but you still can't do the test, it's like, what do you do? Right? And your brain, how would that leave you feeling, right? For me, that would leave me feeling extremely frustrated, and it would be overwhelming. And this is a problem that people have with school even today, like especially people who have neurodivergent traits, right? Because schools aren't really, you know, built to accommodate them, which is why we need people like teaching assistants, why we need like SEMH section or special educational needs department. It's not just a, you know, I think it's wrong to say that like SEN departments are there to, you know, get people to do the work. That's not what you know, they're there for. They're there to help people more broadly with their time in school, right? They're there to help understand, to help, you know, support, and they're there to help mediate between the student and the teacher. That's really what the main job is. And just listening, I'm so glad people have this availability to them right now. I've been speaking with a lot of people with neurodivergence, a lot of adults and a lot of peers with neurodivergent traits, who struggled like severely in school. Like a close relative of mine, I don't know, I believe she has dyslexia, and I don't know exactly what else. I don't think she'd ever been diagnosed, but she did school in like, when was it, like the 80s or something like that, and the teachers kicked her out and they told her that she was, you know, she was unteachable. What does that do to a student's confidence? It completely shatters it, which is why this, you know, this relative of mine took a horse across the school playground and like the school field and kicked it all up. Freaking badass, if you ask me. But no, like, you know, and then later on she ended up doing like, you know, a university degree, like many years later, and the amount of anxiety this poor lady had was incredible. Like, you know, she was told all of her life, and she spent all of her life believing that she cannot be taught, and she had like a very fatalistic outlook to it. The anxiety that causes in people is incredible, right? And it's the same thing that if your brain, like, instead of a teacher coming out and saying, hey, you are unteachable, imagine you have, you know, your brain coming to the conclusion based on all of this experience that you've had, that you are unable to learn something. Like, let's say you're a student in math class, and you've done all of the research and all that, and you still have trouble with it and do not understand why. Your brain is going to decide, and reasonably so, like, well, not reasonably so, there is evidence, like strong supporting evidence for your brain to believe, and it does seem very reasonable to conclude that, you know, that you're just unteachable in maths. It leads them on the wrong path, telling them they can't be taught. Exactly right. Exactly right. And it's not easy on either side, honestly. Because, like, we hear tale of, like, teachers trying their best. Well, these teachers, like, trying to teach these students, and then, you know, ultimately giving up on them. Man, giving up is a really harsh terminology, I think. I just have to take a moment for a second. Yeah. But, you know, it's the job of, like, you know, teaching assistants nowadays to not really, like, you know, help the student learn. Like, ultimately, only the student decides when the student is going to learn, right? We just need to, you know, I almost feel like what you need to do is you just need to be a buddy, right? You just need to be a friend. You just need to, you know, be there and, you know, quite reasonably just, you know, try and talk to them like an equal. Don't, like, try and talk down to them. You just need to be like, you know, listen, I know that you think I'm with the school, and yeah, I am with the school, but, like, you know, from person to person, you know, I want you to succeed. Like, you know, can you tell me a bit about what's going on? You know, that type of stuff. It's just like lending a critical ear, honestly. It's working, man. And this is another tangent, actually. In my brain, I just got this this idea that it's not all just relegated to school. Like, ultimately, these are young people who are still learning the ways of the world. And, like, these young people, like, they don't exist wholly in school. They don't exist wholly outside of school. They don't exist wholly at home. Like, they are all one person, all the same thing, right? So to that extent, putting the responsibility on the teachers to try and teach people, especially individuals with special educational needs, I guess not enough. Like, what you need is you need consistency. And yeah, teachers and teaching assistants and, you know, schools can offer consistency, but that consistency would greatly be benefited by consistency at home as well, right? It's like, I don't feel like teaching is wholly a teacher's job, right? I feel like teaching, and it's not even like wholly a teacher-parent job either, right? It's like peers and, like, you know, YouTube and, like, when I say YouTube, I mean like the media we consume as well. It's like so integrated with everything. It's, oh my god, it is massive. It is so in-depth. It is so ridiculous. But yeah, I mentioned a while ago that one of the reasons why I started streaming and started making YouTube videos is to try and, like, you know, maintain community, or try and get better at communicating with people. I feel like working with, you know, individuals with, you know, special educational needs can really, like, assist you in that regard. Because a lot of the times, you know, people with, let's say, autism, for instance, or people with, you know, learning disabilities, right? A lot of the times, they need, like, they need to have stuff explained to them that, you know, neurotypical people don't have explained to them. Right? And like, in order to explain that to people, you kind of need to, or in order for that to be explained to them, the person teaching them needs to critically think about these unspoken rules that they implicitly seem to understand, right? They have to like rephrase, like the best way to learn something is to teach it to someone else. So, you know, if you're unable to teach these unspoken, you know, rules of conduct to other people, then do you really understand them? I wouldn't think so. Right? You could always understand things better. Sure, you can understand it to a degree where you can get by on your own sake, right? Like, you can go out into society and, you know, not, you know, an extreme example, but you can go out into society and not murder someone, right? Because, you know, there's an unspoken rule that you don't, you know, murder people, right? There's an unspoken rule that you don't also, you know, go outside, you know, go outside holding your middle finger up at people or whatever, right? But, you know, there are people out there who honestly, genuinely would benefit from having, you know, unspoken rules, and those two examples are pretty bad. Let's ignore I used those examples, right? Because they don't actually work with the situation here. But like, unspoken rules about how to socialize with people. Unspoken rules about, you know, like how to say hello to someone, how to speak with someone in a way that doesn't make them feel like they're being railroaded, you know. Unspoken, like, body language is a big thing as well, right? Like, man. And I feel like working with people who have, you know, who need to have these things explained to them really helps you to understand more about how these things work, right? They really help you critically evaluate these things in your life. And ultimately, it helps to make you a better communicator as well, which I think is important. Because ultimately, even now, like, there are like 60, 70, 80, 90-year-olds out there who never had stuff explained to them. And especially back when they were young, it was not the norm, right? People with, like, you know, ADHD or, you know, all these types of things. Oh, that was something that I was looking at earlier on today. What was it? One second, what was it? Let me have a look. It is a condition. It's not a condition, but it's like a sub. I don't know. It's part of a diagnosis. It's part of like a diagnosis that's used for autism, I think. Let me check. It's in my history here. Where is it? Demand avoidance. PDA, pathological demand avoidance. Is a big thing. I'm getting tired, so I can't quite remember why I brought that up. But one second, let me get my brain straight. Yeah. So, like, I'll just tell you a little bit about what I understand of it. And I can tell you from my experience, because I feel like I've had something like this before. It's like, imagine you're at home one day, right? You expect to stay at home, you expect to be able to play your video games all day. And then, you know, your friend calls up, or, you know, your mum or dad comes up and says, hey, we're going out shopping. And it's like, whoa, hold on there. Do I have a say in this? No, you don't. You're coming with me. Like, what the fuck? No, go away. Right? Like, the problem with that, and that is, you know, relates to this because, you know, it's not giving you a choice. Like, if you have, you know, what was it called again? Hold on, I am so bad with remembering things right now. It wasn't that one. Reopen. Defiance, no, not defiance disorder. That oppositional defiance disorder is something completely different. Demand avoidance, there we go. The thing with demand avoidance, you're lucky to have a choice at a young age? Ah, yeah, that is really important for sure. because with demand avoidance, it seems to be more, and somebody please, like, by all means, please correct me if I am wrong on this. It seems to be like an anxiety control thing, right? Like, if you do not have a choice in something and you have to go out shopping with someone, it feels demeaning, and it feels, you know, like control is being wrested away from you. And that is hugely anxiety driving. Ultimately, anxiety is the thing that's at the root of, you know, demand avoidance, it seems. And, you know, at schools, a lot of people have have a lot of demands on them, right? So if you have, like, someone with autism who expresses or displays demand avoidance, they're going to have a rough time because they have all of these deadlines that they need to meet. Every lesson, they're like, hey, you have to read this, right? Whereas, you know, all you really need to do is you just need to give them a choice. You know, it can be constructed to, you know, have them do it, like, you know, have them read the book now or later. But ultimately, like, you need to give them a choice, because otherwise they're going to feel like they're trapped. Just like, you know, how you might feel frustrated when, you know, your parent comes up and says, hey, we're going grocery shopping and, you know, you can't stay at home and play video games. Like, why the hell not? No. You know? Whew. But yeah, okay. I believe that is going to be it for today's stream. Let me see. I believe we should go and raid an enemy. Twitch.tv. Let's see. Oh, it's not loading for me. Ah, here we go. Okay. Ooh, but we also have the Hedge Witch. Ooh, and Melly is also streaming. Playing Splatoon. Lots of topics today. Yeah, it was. And like any good D&D game, we didn't really get to any of the topics I wanted to cover today. I had a list of topics that I wanted to cover today in case I didn't have anything. And we didn't get to... Well, I mean, okay, we got to some of it. Like, one of the topics I have today was, I've got Pokemon, I've got, D&D to check out some of the new Dragonlance content that's coming out soon. Autism. Oh, I did have, PDA on here. Let's see. I did not have... I had cooking on here as well. We'll get to that another time. But yeah, okay. Let's go ahead. How do I do this? How do I do this raid thing? So I do this. And then NPC... Here we go. Okay, and then I hit this button. Alright, cool. So, Melly here is playing Splatoon. I go ahead and say hello to them. They are a fantastic streamer. And they are super chill. Let me go ahead and hit the stream ending button here. And I hope you all have a lovely, lovely week. See you all later.